Hi, I'm Dave Feinlieb with another episode of Big Data TV brought to you by BigDataLandscape.com. And today we're in Sunnyvale, California at the headquarters of Vitria, and we'll be talking with Jo Mei Chen about the company and a great space in big data called operational intelligence. Great. So I'm Dave Feinlieb. I'm the host of Big Data TV, brought to you by BigDataLandscape.com. And I'm here with Jo Mei Chen, who's the CEO of Vitria. And today we'll be talking about Vitria and operational intelligence. Great to have you on the show.
Thank you, and great to being here.
Great. So maybe we can start out talking a little bit about what Vitria does and a little bit about the operational intelligence category.
Sure. We founded Vitria with the focusing on innovation. So Vitria's DNA is really about technology innovation and how to use technology innovation to solve big business problems. So Vitria was founded in 1994, and the problem we focused that time is IT integration, and we pioneered two categories of product: enterprise application integration and business process management. And both categories are substantial market segment for enterprise software. And 5 years ago, we saw big data on the rise. So we start focusing on a problem space in big data we call operational intelligence. And today, Vitria is the operational intelligence company.
That's great. That's great. What does operational intelligence mean?
Operational intelligence is a fast-growing market sector, and loosely speaking, it is about performing analytics over company data. But today, most of the companies in that space, they perform analytics over machine data.
Right.
At Vitria, we take one step further. We perform continuous real-time analytics over company data. But not only machine data, it is over big data, stream events, business processes. In addition, based on the continuous real-time analytics, we enable continuous insight and enable the company to take immediate action.
So machine data is things like log files generated by servers, network devices, things
That's
like that. And obviously there's lots and lots of data there. What are the other kinds of data a company might be working with?
Sure. So machine data, analyzing machine data is like doing forensic analysis. But the company has many other data, the business data, the transaction data, and what's really relevant to their business processes and business transactions usually go across multiple systems. So it's really relevant to how well their business is doing, not just how well their IT system is doing.
Yeah.
So in some sense, that what we consider as the three pillars of operational intelligence are visibility, insight, action. A company had to be able to see all their data, the streaming events, the business data, the transaction, how well everyone's doing, and they'd be able to monitor that and then present the significant event through live dashboard. That's what we call real-time visibility.
Interesting. And who looks at the dashboard? Is that a chief marketing officer? Is that a general manager? Or
I think it's all the above. I think it's the end user, and the end user can be a business user or can be an IT analyst, but not just only looking at the dashboard. I mean, that's only a portion of the total equation. That you also, company had to be able to, based on those, to have analyzing and really understand what does all those data you see, what does it really mean. So you had to be able to correlate those information from different sources. You be able to match the pattern and provide insight. That's why we said data is different than insight. And insight will enable a company make intelligent decisions.
Yeah.
And then, of course, last not the least, is company based on continuous insight, then they be able to take action through preset business processes.
Okay.
So it's really sort of a wide spectrum of activity, but provided by one single unified platform.
Okay, great. And do companies install your software? Do they get it in the cloud? How do they consume the product?
They get it from both. We provide it through cloud or provide it through on-premise fashion. That depends on what our customers comfortable with, because some of our customers, large enterprise customer, that they like to play with cloud, but they are at the stage want to first play with cloud.
But
really
use the software in-house.
Exactly.
Yeah. So either talking about specific customers, or you don't have to mention names, but what are some examples of the kinds of customers that would use your product?
Certainly. For example, let's take telco, for example, that we have a customer that's an international, very large mobile provider, and they get hundreds of millions, billions events a day of network device data. But however, when there's a network event device problem happening, they don't know how does that affect their most important valuable customer, namely their high-paying customer.
Yeah.
So that's a problem.
Yeah.
Right? So what we do with OI is to correlate the billions of network event data against their customer CRM data in a continuous real-time fashion, such that whenever there's a problem occurring, they can pinpoint, identify which high-value customer being impacted. They can then, based on that, to make intelligent decision on what action to correct.
Got it.
Depends on the importance of customer or the financial impact. And similarly, the similar example goes to financial services customer. Banks, they can monitor hundreds or millions of events a day, but they need to really monitor that, compare against their performance goals to make sure they meet the SLA at the end of the day for the customers. More importantly, these days, they comply to the regulatory compliance. So all those requires the continuous real-time monitoring. And
so hopefully we could, in theory, avoid another financial crash, or I might even have my calls not get dropped when I'm driving around Mountain View.
Yes, and in theory, you can also use that to many other industry. And actually, it's not in theory. We have customers in utility industry use that for customer satisfaction. We have customer in cybersecurity space to use that to detect the cyber threat. And you can also use this to identify opportunities, not just threat.
Yeah. So a lot of the talk in big data of late has been around the shift from batch to real time. We've seen a bunch of funding announcements about companies that are commercializing things like Hadoop. Where do you see some of the up and coming trends and technologies in the big data space? Are you seeing things, you talk about sort of real time, but talk a little more about what real time actually means for a customer or for a consumer.
Sure. I think, first of all, a lot of work in the big data space is about storing and access big data, such as Hadoop and such as, how do you make the storing and access easier and easier, which is very important. But on the other hand, it only addresses half of the problem. That is the problem we call big data at rest. Another big segment of the problem is what we call big data in motion. That is the data stream that's happening right now, and how do you access it, or how do you analyze it, and how do you continuously analyzing it. And that's what we call big data in motion. And that problem today is dwarfed compared to the number of companies and innovations that are being focusing on big data at rest. So first of all,
so a lot more companies in infrastructure and storage and so on.
That's right. Okay. They're focusing on storing, but they're not focusing on big data in motion. And second of all, what we also look at to perform real-time analytics is good, but it also needs to be continuous real-time, and not only on big data at rest, but also big data in motion. So let me give you an example of the continuous real-time versus just real-time. Right? That if you want to know about stock information, I'll give you the choice. Would you rather look at the stock ticker tape the stock information keep on coming at you, or you want to, every time you want to know the price, you hit the keyboard, you see the price. Next time you hit the keyboard, you see the price. By the time you see the information is already dated.
Got it.
Your choice.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
So we choose to solve
The continuous
real time.
part. Okay.
And we choose to solve both big data in motion and big data at rest.
Okay, that makes sense.
But in addition, not only just real-time analytics, but also continuous insight and immediate action.
Okay, so a lot of aspects of the big
aspects.
data application level,
That's right.
let's say. Okay,
That's right.
great. So looking ahead to the next couple years, this was called by the New York Times the crossover year for big data. Obviously, you saw big data 5 years ago. What do you think the next 5 years hold in this area?
I think the big data problem only going to get bigger. And the people, company are hopefully starting to address what they consider as the real problem. That is how to unleash the value out of big data, not just being, trying to survive in the big data world.
Yeah.
They're trying to unleash the value out of big data. And what does that mean? Okay? And what that means is big data in motion, understanding and process what's going on right now. And the velocity of the data speed increase, that means the velocity of business change increase. That means that the more pressing for real time, but not only for real time, the continuous real time. But to me, the most important aspect is the third point is to empower the end user. Because end user is the one that they have the domain knowledge, they understand the business value. You have to enable and empower the end user such that they can continuously, real-time fashion, to explore, experiment the big data and getting the insight, then experiment more such that they can truly turn big data into the competitive web. Right? It's the old saying, turn your data into your competitive advantage. Everyone knows how to say that. But having more data, that doesn't mean having more insight. These days, having more data, you're more lost in the insight. So it's really about the 3 points I mentioned. Big data in motion, continuous real time, and empower the end user to solve that.
Great. So one last question for you on this topic. You're a CEO. What advice do you have for other CEOs who are reading a lot about big data, but are perhaps trying to think about how to or what to do with big data in their organizations? What advice do you have for them from an organizational perspective, but also from a technology or a implementation perspective?
I think big data is here to stay, and everyone needs to jump in and to start leveraging the data they have in their organization. What I always say is this is the time for the business change rapidly occurring, and the business change a lot of times are driven by fear and by greed. So whoever jump in first, embrace big data, be able to leverage the value, unleash the value of big data, they are the one that's going to make most of the money. And then the rest, if they get left behind, they either, because of the fear, they want to catch up, or they get left behind, then it's over.
Yeah, great.
So that's
it. Well, fantastic. Well, thanks so much for being on the show. We may spend a minute or two looking around the office with you, but it's really great having you on the show.
Excellent.
Thank you
very much.
Okay. So it's always nice to find out a little more about the personal side of some of our founders and CEOs. And we're here with Joe May in front of a fountain out front of Vitria. And tell us a little about how this fountain came about.
Well, we moved into this building when Vitria was still a startup and hasn't decided to go IPO. So we have very limited budget in terms of how to decorate the building. But I always wanted a fountain in the building because that represents the continuous water flow, the continuous source innovation, and very soothing. And I saw with the designer, the building has beautiful fountain, and it was $250,000 price quote, and the designer told me, Joe, you cannot afford it, it's not in your budget, no way. And I said, I agree, it's too expensive, But it doesn't stop me from wanting a beautiful fountain. So I went to San Francisco Home and Garden Show, and I saw a very small copper fountain. So I look at that and I said, it's beautiful. So I asked the artist, can you make me a larger scale of the fountain? And he looked at me to say, sure, why not? So I ordered the fountain.
That's great.
And here you are. We pay a fraction of the price of the fountain in the affordable range of a startup.
Yeah.
And the fountain was delivered the week before when IPO and arrived here with the water flow, with the innovation. Here's the fountain.
That's such a great story.
So it
and a
represents
beautiful fountain, by the way.
It represents to me that anything is possible, and you just get to give it a try.
So we've been here today with Joe May, CEO of Vitria, and give us that quote one more time, because I think it's such a great quote for entrepreneurs and CEOs.
I think the two quote is anything is possible. The other one is people who does not believe it can be done should not be in the way of people that's doing it. That's my motto in life.
That's so great. Well, thanks again. It's been a real pleasure.
Thank you.
Yeah.